Awesome. We've just got off the back of our monthly roundtables, and I guess what we wanted to do is just to kind of discuss some of the things in which we have just been talking about with owners, etc. And the one that sort of came up in some form of depth this week was in regards to like coaching ability, developing coaches, and what I guess we wanted to do is just kind of explore a little bit more in regards to what we what we do at each other's respective gyms, but also like what we've seen and what we could probably kind of like recommend and advise as well, and that's just from trying to help develop coaches and support our affiliate owners, because fundamentally we want to make sure that people are enjoying their CrossFit when they're coming to the gym, staying in a safe as environment as you can do with like snatches and toes to bar and bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, what did you kind of take away from it?
Yeah, it was a good conversation. So for those who might not know, we do these roundtables with affiliate owners every Thursday. There's different cohorts. We have different groups of people coming. And it's not uncommon for one theme to kind of come out of the conversations and it be what we focus on. And as Andy said, it was coach development this week, and specifically the amount of people you can have in a class and still be an effective coach to everyone that's there. And I think sometimes people are hesitant to increase the number of participants they have in the class because they're worried about making sure people get safety, effective cueing. And it's something that I definitely had a mindset of when I first started working with you, Andy, of like classes can't be above 14 people because I need to make sure that I'm getting round to everyone. And you really challenged me to increase that cap. And I think it was something that was fantastic for our business.
Well, this is the thing, right? It's just it's the balance between the commercial element, right? Because we know we need members in order to pay the bills, etc. And it's trying to find that kind of sweet spot. And that sweet spot, and as I said, that's why I kind of pushed you to it. Sometimes it touches a nerve because it means that as a coach we have to look at our ability to deliver, and whether or not that we can consider deliver to the same standard as we get larger. Do we have the skill set to do it? But also accepting that it is going to be slightly different the more people that you coach, right? And that difference realistically is just number of contacts per person. And so that's why I always say it's a skill set thing. So you went from 16 to 20, 20 to 24. What did you feel was the moments for you in terms of like what you needed to kind of see or feel from a coaching perspective, or maybe your members' perspective, to make those significant jumps? Because as I'm right in saying the cap now at Second City is 24 per class.
Yeah, so I think 24 is correct. Yeah, so the biggest thing that we tweaked and we changed was the control element and finding out what things we could control, and that was something that you helped me with. So we stopped doing 6-minute AMRAP for a warm-up. Off you go, guys. These are the 3 movements. And we started really controlling all aspects of the warm-up so we could do that initial analysis on people, how they were moving, how they were feeling and stuff like that. We put lots of things into control where if we were doing a weightlifting portion, we'd maybe have half the room lift on 0, half the room lift on 30, so I could only look at half the people at one time. Yeah. A lot more sharing equipment, like people don't need their own individual barbell for a snatch complex. Making sure that people weren't stood around is something that we're quite keen on as well. So, if we're teaching a gymnastic movement, be it a pull-up, a handstand press-up, whatever it is, I might work with a portion of the room whilst the other half of the room are having a minute off doing some skipping, some rowing, something to keep their temperature up and keep them moving that ideally complements the rest of the session, but doesn't get in the way of the main focus.
Yeah, I mean, when kind of like taking people through, let's say, the high skill exercises, right? Some of the feedback that we always get is like, oh, well, the more advanced people, tend to, check out. And I'm like, well, the thing is, you need to keep them engaged, right? Sometimes the reason why people sort of check out is just generally the coach is talking a bit too much, and I know it goes, it's sounding like a broke record, but if they are moving less than you are talking more, It's like the whole ratio's, gone. Your ability as a coach is, yes, it is to teach, but it's more important for you to affect change when that person is moving, right? Because that's the thing which they will remember. That's the thing which keeps them engaged. That's the thing that actually makes the improvement, right? So progressions, like, have your own set of progressions, and that's where, like we do at Dragon, is like that we just want to make sure that our coaches are taking people through a good series of progressions, whether that's for the pull-ups, whether that's for bar muscle ups, or whether that's for handstand push-ups, right? You can have an own little flavor to that, in terms of, like, some people might, for a handstand push-up, might want to teach to 2 mats or something like that, and whereas we might be like, well, look, if they've got the mat, they got the ability, then someone else can be a bit more flexible, right? It's all going to come down to the skill set of the coach anyway, right? But key criteria, right, is that let's say you are teaching a handstand push-up, all right, you've got 7 people going up on the wall. The aim of that through a progression is not to give everyone a cue, because that's just going to eat into a timeline. And then, yes, people are going to be checked out and, looking at other things, all right? It's about, right, cool, I just want to give 1 or 2 for the people that I know that need it in that moment, possibly. Or, if you're looking, from a little bit further back, where the most impact will be. And then you can always make more connections through the progressions as you go along, right? I mean, with you now bringing in that structure, how do you allow it for the coaches to have some kind of individuality? Because that's always the pushback that we kind of get when we have these conversations. Well, I want my coach to, do what they want to do. Cool. All right. But you've got to give them some guide and some guide rails in which to do that. So, I mean, like, how have you done that at Second City?
Yeah, so the team will meet once a week and they'll effectively do their class plans together. We've done a few things where initially, like, I would write the class plans and then just ask them to go and deliver it verbatim. I've let them write their own individual class plans. I felt there was a lot of variance in there, maybe a little bit outside of those guide rails. And now what they do is they write them together. And then I attend the classes and offer feedback on it. So I don't myself, as the owner of the gym, get involved in those class plans at the moment. I leave that to my head coach and the team. But because I'm in the classes, I can offer immediate feedback, like, hey guys, like, this was great, but maybe we tweak this for the later class. It helps. I'm normally in the morning doing the classes as well, so that makes it a little bit easier for a bit of tweaks throughout the day. But that's generally how we'll set up the week. I think it might be good if you could, Andy. Like, let's take that handstand push-up example you mentioned. How would you run through the progressions of that at Dragon? So let's say we've got 10 people in front of us, 12 people in front of us. What would the layers of that handstand push-up, as an example, and hopefully everyone who's watched this can kind of see that how you can apply that to a pull-up or a muscle-up or a snatch?
So first of all, we look at progressions as individualization for the workout, right? So, I mean, like, there will be sometimes, like, we might have, let's say, some handstand density work before we do a workout, right? So an EMOM, let's say, right? So the individualization for that EMOM is finding out what that person is going to be doing as an exercise to make them have the full movement and the volume at which they're going to be doing it, right? So that's what we're trying to deliver with the skill set of the coach, right? But the way in which we would start that, it's kind of like twofold, right? So we're going to start on a floor-based scenario. We're going to have a look at people's pressing strength in a horizontal fashion, right? And again, it just allows us to warm up the muscles which are going to be related to it, right? So we'll go kneeling push-up, okay? We'll teach the kneeling push-up. We get people to move. Then we'll do regular push-up. And then we would move people onto the wall, right? And then we would actually get them inverted very quickly. And the way in which we would do that was just be to see where someone's capacity is with a wall walk, right? Again, we will just teach, depending on if it's a wall walk focus or not, depends on the level at which we would teach that, right? Because some people don't really need too much, and then some people where we would just make sure that we're looking from an efficiency perspective, get them upside down. We find that it's a lot easier to get people that when we actually start to teach people to kick up against the wall, specifically for some of the new members who might be a little bit, I don't want to say scared, but aren't as confident in their ability to kick up against the wall, right? Because we do have large classes. that confidence. Hey, you've been upside down, great, all right? And again, what I would say on that one as well, right? If someone can't complete a full range of motion wall walk, they probably haven't got the required strength to go upside down either. Okay, so again, that's us as a little check it, right? Because that is going to be their holy grail. Their holy grail for that amount of time would be, oh my God, I've done a full range of motion wall walk, right? That is there for them at that moment in time. Okay, so it's understanding that. Once we've done that, then we will teach kicking up against the wall. Okay, then we would move on to teaching the kipping pull up. That's the pull up, handstand push up. And the reason being is that if someone has strict in the locker, we don't really need to worry about them too much in terms of, you know, what they might be doing in the workout, because it's, as we always say, if you've got strict, then you can do dynamic kind of pieces, right? So that's why we teach a dynamic piece first, and then that gives us the opportunity to basically set the standard, right? So the standard that we have at Dragon is different from where we go, right? For those who haven't got the required level of strength, okay, let's say for a full range of motion handstand push-up or kipping handstand push-up, we will allow people 2 mats, you know, 2 ab mats basically, okay? And so we give the people opportunity then, hey, go get 2 ab mats, and then we'll start working down towards that. And then for those of you that don't need hand mats, so again, we're teaching people in regards to like, well, I've done this with you before, you kind of know where you're at. But it allows us to work with the beginners, and then we would just progress it from there, right? So we would then basically break the kip down to, we do a slow lower, right? Do 2, do 3, you know, we're walking in as people are sort of changing. We always pair up as well, depending on the size of the class. So for the bigger class, that we will always have people pairing up. If it's a smaller class, then we can get everyone up on the wall. We'll try and do everything up in one, and we just do it that fashion, right? And then from there, you know, basically, the down phase, the kick phase, and then repetition phase. And then we basically just try and find out what works for someone on there. Yeah, that's kind of how we do it. Sorry to elongate that out as much as possible.
No, that's perfect, mate. So you're talking about layering, right? So we're taking the very basic of the movement, that press up from the knees, and then we're just layering in different layers of complexity. And I think we could spend an hour arguing about the different layers and what movements could go in there. And the beautiful thing of being an affiliate owner is you can have your own individuality on what those steps are. But I think the main thing we're talking about is that layering process towards the end goal.
And that's it. The layering process allows not only the coach, but the athlete to know where they're at and the exercise in which they have to practice in order to get to the full range of motion movement, right? You know, and again, it means that it gives the coach the opportunity to look at different things, maybe on a particular progression. They'll be looking in one particular aspect, and that's what the person might need to work on. So again, it just gives a simple blueprint for that coach, and there's a variation within that, so it's not just the same and monotonous all the time.
Would you challenge your guys to have like a specific thing that they were looking for that day? So if we carry on with this handstand push-up and analysis analogy, if you like, would you say, right guys, on today I want to focus on everyone making sure that it's a controlled descent rather than dumping down on the head? Or would you keep it quite global and individual depending on what flaws you were seeing with each person?
In regards to the coach delivering to the class, or in regards to between staff?
Coach delivering to the class. So like, would you say to all of the staff who are coaching tomorrow's 21-15-9 of handstand push-ups and deadlifts, guys, I really want to focus on controlled descent? Or would you keep it like, I just want everyone's handstand push-ups being perfect tomorrow?
I don't know if we'd focus on like the one thing. Maybe in the teaching perspective, we say, well, this is what this progression is going to be, you know, to do, this is what I'm looking for. Because I always find that when we teach as a trainer, it's super important to tell people what you are looking for. I mean, okay, as long as it doesn't detract away from the actual class environment. I'm not a massive fan of people teaching what they don't want to see, because it's almost like, hey, this is what I want to see, this is what I don't want to see. And again, that kind of leaves the lasting impression in, you know, your members' mind of what they shouldn't do. And because they're so focused on what they shouldn't do, they don't actually do what they do. And I just rather sort of keep that in the locker if we need to on a one-on-one basis. But it's like, yeah, it should run kind of seamlessly. And again, on an individual basis, some coaches will be able to see something. So again, that might be something in which, if we were working on a coach development perspective, I say, look, this is what I want you to do for the next period of time in order to kind of develop your eye on that one. But you know, safety is the paramount, and then finding the right exercise for that person for that workout is kind of like the big key takeaway, right? Like we say, it's scaling. I just like the word individualization, right? Because it's always on the positive nature, whereas scaling, yes, we are scaling it back to that individual's needs, all right, and to match the stimulus, but it's a bit of a negative connotation to it. It's like, well, this is where you're at the moment, you know, rather than, hey, look, this is what you need to do in order to get there.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it there, like trying not to use, I'd call them closed cues. So don't do this, I don't want to see this, but instead of what you want to see, positive language, right? So your knees are caving in versus drive your knees out as a classic example in the squat.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and part of the reason why we're kind of like talking about this, right, is at this moment in time is because, you know, it's being able to do this on a smaller size and then start to replicate it out. And I guess this is the challenge in which we're seeing with the conversations that we're having with affiliate owners and trainers, is that, look, you know, if you are a new trainer going into a busy gym, you have a really challenging task, you know, and it's not, you know, it's like, I think the number mentioned was the 24 as a gym that's recently, they've had a kind of like a new influx of members. You know, they have had to increase their classes to a 24 cap, and that's because they found that they needed to find a point to put on some extra classes. And I think that we ended up having a conversation, well, in one way or another, it's going to end up costing you either to put on an additional class so that you can then, you know, maintain, you know, the in inverted commas quality dependent on the skill set of the coach, or you open it up and you either invest into the coaches or invest in some time rather than the financial side to get them up to speed of where you need them to be, right? You know, some people say, well, you know, you know, 2 coaches on at that one time. I'm like, yeah, you could do that. It's still an additional financial cost, but also it's not going to fix or develop the coach to deliver to more people, because if you, like, you know, say 24 divided by 2, it's 12, right? So you still got that kind of skill set, right? We know of gyms who've done it well. I think post 24, I think there are, I think CrossFit Bath brings in an additional coach, I believe. But again, that marker now is like, you know, for years it was 12. But from the commercial aspect of it, right? I mean, without, you know, going into too much detail, and just so like whoever listens to this podcast just gets an idea in mind. If you are delivering classes of 12, your membership should be looking at like £200 a month minimum, you know, because of that small group nature and environment, and because people will get more attention because there's only 12 people in the class. So you can connect with people on a more volume part level, right? And again, it allows for more conversations with people. And so what I mean is that the more people that you train, you actually have to sharpen your skill set as a coach, because it has to be succinct. It has to be done in fewer words. You have to keep people moving. You have to keep people safe. And so people do get less contact, but the power of those contacts, those cues, and those connections needs to be on a higher level, because they still need to have that same kind of feeling. It does, you know, more isn't always better. As we say, everyone says better is better, right? But just higher quality cues, okay? That's the skill set in which we're trying to develop. And it is hard throwing someone in there who's just recently come off the, you know, the level 1, basically. I mean, how do you bring your guys on in terms of newer coach, least experienced, has got all the assets and facets that you're after, what do you do to bring them on up to speed?
So we've got quite a slow interning process. I've got a very, very slow hiring process, to be honest. So that hiring process will be like a couple of interviews, taking part in classes. I'm looking for interactions with members and stuff like that. When it comes to the interning process, we used to follow a 21-15-9 format of watch 21 classes, take a small part of 15, and then lead 9 with another coach. And then about a year ago, I flipped it. So I get them to watch 9 classes. Now I get them to lead 15, and then they take 21 with someone else as a security blanket for them. So what I mean by that is if I've got a new coach and he's taking the class, I'm still responsible for the timeline. I'm still responsible for everything I would be if I was coaching that class, but he's involved. I'll be honest, I don't think our interning process ever finishes. Like I still work with our coaches every time I do a class, in our weekly staff meeting and our weekly CPD meetings. I think it's never done. You know,
No.
like I can talk about going through the L4 process now, and it's like I'm seeing in color again going through this process. Like I can see all these flaws all over the place and things we need to tweak and change, and that's in a 14 and a half year affiliate. So yeah, our intern process: 9 watching, ask questions, 15 leading a small portion of the class, and then 21 where they're handheld. Then they get cut loose to go on their own. The only thing that I've added, and I was inspired by this from Ollie at CrossFit Bath, is there is no guarantee of employment going through that intern process. I guarantee you'll be a better coach at the end of it, but there is no guarantee of employment at the end of it.
Yeah, I think setting that as a standard, and I like the way you flipped it, right? Because people learn on the job. I always talk about it as an analogy in terms of when you actually learn to drive, right? You're taught how to drive, you pass your test, and then you actually learn to drive by pushing the margins of your experience or pushing the throttle down on the floor, right? And it's the same kind of thing. But it's good that you actually have that process in mind, because then people can kind of deliver and go into that. It's my office mate in the background. My longest serving friend.
How about a dragon? How do you to bring people on? And I appreciate I've just said that there's 45 hours of interning before they get on the floor. If I was desperate for a coach, I would obviously need to expedite that situation.
Yeah. So it's again, after going and speaking with the guys at Bath, right? Because I'm obviously not that Ollie would be remiss if I like he doesn't want us to put them on a pedestal, but what they have done, right, is that they've got a larger membership base than what most gyms do in the UK, right? And so they've gone through all these issues and trying to find the right staff members, etc., over time. And we basically decided to go for 3 months, and there's no guarantee of work at the end of it. You don't need a level 1 to do it. Okay. What we basically do is that if someone's got a level 1, great, you still got to go through it. If you don't have a level 1, again, there's no guarantee at the end of it there's going to be jobs. So what we do know is that you will be a better coach, whichever kind of path we decide to go on, right? But it has changed, materialized over that time, and I've been working with Ash, who's our in-house level 3, to kind of develop that. But similar sort of stuff. It starts off as shadowing, and then we just basically drip feed in little bits and pieces, getting them to a point where they're leading the class, and then we make a decision then whether or not that they have the requirements to actually just do it on their own. So that lead in will always have some member of staff in there. Okay. We then have a decision or a conversation in regards to what the next steps are. So let's say we've got someone who's come to the end of that intern process. They're not quite there for what we need in order to deliver a class on their own. So we will just basically ask them whether or not they want to continue in this process, or if they just want to take a break and then kind of revisit it at a different time, right? So we have found that is probably a better way forward, because it keeps our bank of coaches and a bank of people who want to, train other people through CrossFit quite broad. But we only ever take one intern on ever at a time. So we did start off where we had to cram a couple of people in quite quickly, but we found that the quality kind of died off a little bit in regards to our delivery, being able to facilitate all the touch points that we wanted to do as well. So we just focus in on one person, and we're about to market that externally, because the latest intern who is going to step up is now graduating in terms of taking the classes, and it's been a good process. And the reason being is that if people do come in, from, let's say, another CrossFit gym, or they've got a level 1, they've got a particular kind of way in which they might not knowingly, but they will do things, right? And that's not to say it's a good or a bad way, it's just not the dragon way. And so, like, our particular philosophy and flavor does have a couple of guide rails in which people have to adhere to. And so sometimes it takes people a little bit longer to kind of get used to it. And it's almost like what's the word, period, when you start a gym, start a job.
Probation period.
Yeah. So again, we get to sort of see the people, etc. I mean, we've hired externally, we've hired internally. We've found that since we've had the intern process, they've been a little bit more on the internal hires, which is great, because people are just like, they're already ingrained in the way in which we kind of do things, So, but the fact that me and you were talking about having an intern process is kind of a key thing here. And we've not been having enough conversations, I guess, across the network to understand what everyone's intern process is. But let's just say, as a kind of like a rough estimate, not every gym has got an intern process. You are asking a lot of people, sort of chucking them in there sometimes as well, which is, it's a sink or swim scenario, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think neither of us are saying that we're doing it how it should be done, and you have to follow our format or our process. But I think what we are saying is some form of intern process is needed to be able to go from a class of 10 to 12 to 14 to 16. And also, it doesn't need to be those big jumps. It can be 10 to 11, 11 to 12. We're the same. We've took internal and external hires and varied that process depending on the level of their experience and things like that. What would you say?
It's just different now as well. So as I mentioned before, we sort of cut on to the call. It's like, when I did my level 1, I was chomping at the bit to go and do a new course, right? And the next course was generally the CrossFit weightlifting course from there, right? But the market has changed now, and that change, it's 15 years down the line, and the markets are more mature. The affiliate owner, or the person responsible for that internship or developing the people, is probably going to have to take a little bit more of a guiding role in regards to developing those skill sets now, in regards to, teaching people about, the gymnastics, because I guess it's one of those things from a commercial standpoint. You can't adjust, if you're I'm going off on you, but the programming is going to be set at an affiliate to your least experienced coach. Because, I mean, if you've got a Gucci program, it's like the best thing since sliced bread, but you've got a learner coach that can't deliver it at that, but it's null and void anyway, right? So it's like, how do you get those people up as quickly as possible? And I think in the modern, the modern scenario is that that's got to have to be done a little bit more in-house, and then you can kind of send them off to go and get the official stamp, etc. Because you will always learn something on a course, whatever it is. You always come away with a golden nugget. But in order to get your training and your staff up to speed, a lot more needs to be done in-house, in the modern time.
Especially if there's an efficiency and speed requirement, right? Like I can take my guys and I can start coaching them right now. If I want to send them on a gymnastic course, I need to find the money, find the course, find the hotels, get cover, things like that. I think you said it last week. It'd be a bit like taking a learner driver and putting them into an F1 car. You wouldn't do that, right? You'd step that up, coach up slowly. What would be your 3 top things you would tell an affiliate owner to tweak in the delivery of a class if they were looking to increase the class cap?
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so 3 things.
Yep.
For an affiliate owner to increase their class cap. So I want to go from 16 to 24. What 3 things could I tweak to make it an easier transition for me?
So the 3 things that you need to kind of understand, I guess, is the thing that anchors everything in terms of delivery of class is going to be the programming, right? So if you're going to be going from 16 to 20 to 24, the programming's got to kind of facilitate that fact. So for example, at Dragon, if I had a class of 16, I could quite easily have toes to bar, double unders, and a barbell in a workout, right? But if I'm going to be moving up to another 4 people, those 3 movements can't be put together. Yes, it's not ideal. It might not be the perfect programming, but it's understanding the facility. So the facility first and foremost is that you have to adjust it. Then the next one is that the other thing with that programming, you have to take that least experienced coaches' experience into consideration. Again, this would have an effect on the programming, maybe from a little bit of a watered down or a simplified part, or you just can have it in mind. So again, there may be on certain days, there are certain movements, okay, and certain days where you don't program certain movements, right? And the reason being is that you're just taking that into consideration. And a third one, who the people that you're training, who are the members of your gym, right? Because that's where it all comes down to. Those are the people in which we are serving. And if you feel it is the right time that you are going to need to increase your class size, because from the commercial standpoint, okay, we might need to facilitate more people in a class, okay. It's understanding that you're going to have some people who've been with you and have had more of those contact points on a smaller level, and it's just trying to deliver the same level of quality but at lesser volume as you grow, right? So that's where it always comes down to a skill set. And I think getting your coaches to practice and understand the programming element will also increase their skill set as well, right? So again, those are the 3 kind of things in which I think you need to take into consideration when you decide to take the step up. And here's the thing, right? You might be forced to take that step a little bit quicker than what you want to, but that's part and parcel, I guess, of running a business. Is like, I've got to get my skill set and my experience up to that level, because that's where we are at now. I've mentioned it to you before. Sometimes it feels like I'm holding on for dear life and the bolts are starting to come away, right? When we get to a certain point. But as Greg Glassman quietly put it, right, we fail at the margins of our experience, right? So we've got to go out to those margins, because that's where we'll start to learn and develop threshold training, virtuosity, and so I see it as a balance, but those would be my 3 kind of like considerations. Get the programming dialed in, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah, love that. So don't go program a 5K row for a class of 24 if you've got 5 rowers. You are setting that coach up for failure. 100%. You're sending them down the Nile. It sounds like you sort of touched on like preparation of that coach as well, making sure that they know what they need to do, that they are preparing for that class in whatever format you want. And then don't jump the stable before you need to. Don't go to 24 if you've regularly got 16 people in your class. It's not a jump that you need to. Don't expose yourself to that risk.
Yeah. And I guess from the conversation that we had on the round table as well, right? It's like the weekends. Everyone always goes, oh, well, we've got bigger classes on the weekends. I'm like, brilliant. But what do you do in order to facilitate that? Well, we do partner workouts. We simplify the movements. Maybe we go a little bit longer. You're setting the expectation with your clientele, and I kind of like that. Something similar to what we do here, at Dragon. It's like Monday to Friday's business. It's like you're coming in, we're working with you. The coach is like on it all the time, Monday to Friday. Weekend it's a bit more relaxed, it's a bit more community focused. As long as you're safe and you're having fun with your buddy, we kind of set that kind of tone, and from a development perspective, there's a couple of things and assets which are available to the affiliate owners, right? It's like I got off a call with the education team the other day, and they're talking about CAP. CAP is a great coaching development tool because, as I mentioned, is like if you use, let's say, an external provider for your programming, it still needs to go through those 3 filters. And you can get your coaches to do it, because there is lesson plans, there's all that there. You can say, okay, cool, brilliant. You've got the lesson plan there, which is provided by CAP. You've got the workout. Show me what you would do at our gym. And then that's where you start to develop your coaches and your own, I guess, leadership skill set as well at the same time. So, it's there.
Yeah, CAP's awesome for those class plans and those layouts. And I think you touched on it a little bit there. It's good to get your entire team prepping for classes and class plans, not just a head coach or one person, because if one person only does it, the team never develop that skill set. And it is a skill set to write a class plan. Like I'm confident that yourself of however many years now could write a class plan quicker than someone who's just done a level 1. So I think CAP is awesome for that. Not only the plans if you're following the CAP programming, but there's so many movement libraries and different things that can assist you throughout the toolkit as well. It's well worth checking out.
Yeah, it was a good plug, that.
Yeah, not bad. All right, let's wrap it up there, mate.
All right, nice one. All right, so thank you very much. If you've got this far, again, we're just trying to provide, sort of like value to not only our affiliate owners, but the trainers, that are delivering those classes day in, day out. Any questions? Fire us up an email. Gareth, can you do it as well this time? Just so
somewhere
there. All right.
Yeah.
Fire us an email and ask the question.
We've had this conversation because someone's asked us a question. I think we said last week, if we don't get asked the questions, we'll just stand here and waffle for half an hour about all things CrossFit that we love. So let us know what you want to hear about and we can talk about it.
Great. All right. Cheers, Gar. Thank you, bud.
Thanks, buddy.